Okay.
Oh, you got
Hey,
YouTube.
what's going on, Kansas City? You're now rocking with What's Real Talk. It's been a while since we've been on the station at KUAW. We're actually back on the station. You can call us at area code 816-599-6893. Today's episode is going to be Snitching or Being the Witness, the 6ix9ine effect. But before I actually get to talking about 6ix9ine on the run through the weekly news, I'm going to take this off real quick. All right, so this week we actually started our soft opening via Mayor Quentin Lucas and Rex Archer, who's the director of the health department. The rules are constantly changing, so I would ask people or encourage people to contact the mayor's office or contact the health department to see what new guidelines that they actually have. They came out with initial 10-10-10 rule, and that 10-10-10 rule has been amended. And again, I don't have all the details on all of the changes in it, so contact the mayor's office or contact the health department. Real quick, I'm gonna run through the Capitol News so we can get into our topic. And again, our topic today is snitching or being the witness, the 6ix9ine effect. Reversal redistricting reforms. So for those that don't know, this Thursday was the last day of the General Assembly, and they went out with a bang like every year. Reversal redistricting reform sent to ballot and a rebuke to Missouri voters. The Republican control, hey, y'all a little loud over there, bro. The rebuke of the Missouri voters, the Republican controlled House of Representatives on May 13th voted 98-56 in favor of a proposed constitutional amendment that seeks to reverse the clean Missouri redistricting reforms. Voters overwhelmingly ratified. You remember this, John? And hold on, let me read through it because they did it. In 2018, the measure, which the state approved in February, automatically goes on the November 3rd statewide ballot, although the governor has authorized has authority to move it to the August 4th primary. During debate, the Senate Joint Resolution 38, its Republican proponents repeatedly claimed voters didn't understand what they were voting for with the wide-ranging Clean Missouri Amendment, which in addition to changing how state legislative seats are drawn, also contain provisions to limit lobbyist influence over lawmakers and to make it easier for the public to access lawmaker records. Under Clean Missouri, a nonpartisan demographic is charged with drawing new House and Senate districts based on Constitution criteria. They emphasize maximizing the numbers of competitive districts. The system is slated for use to be used the first time during the upcoming redistricting cycle in 2021, which will create districts to be used starting in 2022. All right, full disclosure, when I was at the state last year, I actually came out against Clean Missouri. I didn't think Clean Missouri did what the voters thought it did because it was slated to clean up Missouri politics. It was slated to clean up dark money. It was slated to stop lobbyist influence. But I can tell you out of personal experience that lobbyists just rewrapped around how they was doing their gifts, and it actually made it more dark money transparent because in the past when a legislator would get a gift, they would go on the Missouri registry. What the lobbyists started doing was wrapping gifts around to their foundation, which is not a lobbyist. So it was a whole bunch of gamesmanship. And I know you want to get on to Jonas after I go through the news and open it all the way up because you know about that debate. Yeah. Senate passes transportation bill, then kills it. In a highly unusual turn of events, the Senate on May 14th voted to grant final passage to an omnibus transportation bill, but then changed its mind and killed the bill before it could be formally sent to the governor for consideration. In the morning, the Senate voted 29-2 in favor of Senate Bill 782, which originally was a short bill limited to boating safety identification cards, but was transformed by the House of Representatives to a massive omnibus measure containing dozens of provisions loosely relating to transportation. After hours after the final passage, however, deceptive worded language was discovered in the bill that could have blocked the Grain Belt Express power transmission project across northern Missouri, and also increased costs for other power utilities in the state. All of that caused the bill to die. Once the deception was discovered, the Senate voted 29-0 shortly before 11 to reverse its previous vote to kill that legislation. That was a unanimous vote out of the Senate, which is weird. State school board authorizes early school start. Public school districts will wish to start in 2021 school year earlier than allowed under new state law will be able to do so under temporary authority granted by the Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education Commissioner to waive the requirement according to the Missouri Net. The Missouri State Board of Education on May the 12th voted allow districts the option for an earlier start to the school year due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the strong possibility of a second wave hidden in the fall that could again force schools to close for several weeks. Under a state law enacted last year, public schools can begin the academic year no later than 2 weeks before Labor Day or August 24th. This year, however, the law empowers the state school board to waive the requirement. More full disclosure, I was 100% against this bill last year when it came up. The rationale behind this bill was that they wanted more students to be able to have time off during the state fair. We hadn't been able to discuss any type of education benefits for inner city schools. So I just wanted to throw that out there, but they are allowing schools to start early in case if there is another outbreak. Lawmakers are on the rise for legal bar punitive damage. The House of Representatives voted 98 to 51 on May the 12th to grant final passage to the legislation, making it more difficult for successful plaintiffs in civil lawsuits to recover punitive damages. The Senate previously approved the measure by a 21 to 9 vote. A little bit of background on this. This bill has been around for several years. I believe it was around when you was in the House too, Jonas. When we talk about lowering the amount of punitive damages, we're actually talking about taking away the dollars that people who get hurt by companies, corporations, or large entities are able to recoup. The last time I looked, I believe we was at like 300,000, and they was trying to lower that. I do not know the financial dollar amount on this bill that the Senate just passed, but it cannot be good. And with that, I'm just going to read out a couple numbers and we're ready to get into the topic. And again, our topic today is going to be snitching or being the witness of 6-9 effect. But before I do that, for those that are feeling ill with COVID-19 symptoms, call 816-404-CARE, which is 816-404-2273. And you can get tested. They're doing tests. Yeah, call that number because I got some old dates on here. May the 21st, we will be at Victorious Life Church, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. during our third of this month drive-through food bank. I believe it's like our fifth or sixth one that we put together all together. And then if you contact me at Kansas City KCMO, Brandon.Ellington@kcmo.org, I can send you all of the free community meal update lists and all of that stuff that we got. I'll read those at the end of the show, but I'm ready to get into the topic. And I've been talking for a minute. So again, today's topic is snitching or the 6-9 effect. So why are we talking about this today?
The 6-9 effect. Now he didn't already got it there, huh?
Like, no. I'm about to bring it, but I want to tell people where this is coming from. Okay. York asked me what was the motivation. Well, several motivations. So a lot of people know where I stay at. I stay off of 40th and Prospect. It's a couple blocks over there that is extremely problematic. So I was out cutting the grass yesterday. I had about 3 or 4 people pull up on me, talking about one particular house in particular. Right, I know this house, issues with the house, etc. But all of them had the same concern. Like, man, something has to be done. Like, they're doing too much. They're playing music loud. They're shooting guns, drive-bys, all type of stuff. Wet being sold, all type of stuff popping out of this house. As I'm walking up that block, because I walked up the block, one of the elderly ladies on that block stopped me. She's about 70, 75, something like that. She's sort of showing me her fences. Now, her fences got bullet holes and all of this stuff. Now, one of the properties that I'm talking about is in very close proximity to where I stay, but it's not in close enough proximity to where whatever they does disturbs me, right? They're not right next door to me. But I started thinking about them and how they're feeling victimized in the house because, one, they can't leave out. Physically, they don't want to have a physical confrontation with these people because there's an age difference, there's an aggression difference. These folks have guns and all type of people hanging out and stuff like that. And then we have resource differences. The older folks, they're property owners. They own their house. They have a lot to lose if stuff goes bad. Other people are just renters, right? They can actually tear up the block. They can do what they want and get away with it. So I flagged down a cop on 39th and off of 39th Street. Typically, I don't do this. The only other time I've ever flagged down a cop was when there was an individual that was shot in the middle of the street that was laying there, and the cops happened to be around the corner, and I was like, man, I got to do something, right? So to cut a long story short, I get to talking to authorities, et cetera, and they're aware of issues, they're aware of problems, and I can't go into details on everything, but there is levels to everything, to investigations, to arrests, to crimes, to block tensions, and the whole nine. But when are we actually going to get to a point when we say enough is enough? So I put some numbers out on Facebook earlier. So we're at a little over 60 murders in Kansas City today. I believe it's like 83 murders in the whole metro area, 62 murders in the Kansas City area, right? 18 deaths related to COVID-19. Everybody's talking about COVID-19. Nobody's talking about the 60 murders that we have here, or is actually working to eradicate the 60 murders. And before I get in, because I know it's about to be extremely hot, I want to throw this out too. What is a conspiracy under federal law? A conspiracy becomes a federal conspiracy when the object of the conspirators is an action that violates one or more federal criminal statutes. An agreement to defraud the government becomes a conspiracy even if no specific statute defines the anticipated conduct, right? Conspiracy statutes. You can find those under Federal Code 18 USC 371. Legal definition of conspiracy. In the law, a conspiracy refers to an agreement between two or more people to commit an unlawful act. So if I'm not engaged in a criminal activity, and I know I'm throwing this out for argument, if I'm not engaged in a criminal activity, I have no legal mandate to actually talk, to say what I seen, or anything like that. But do I have a moral obligation to do something? And where does that line come between the culture and what's right? So when you talk about so-called minority communities, more often than not, we talk about white communities that they're gonna tip. Oh man, you can't go over there, they're gonna call the cops, they're gonna do this, they're too nosy. But is that being nosy, or is that actually being concerned about people in your neighborhood? And then I'm also gonna touch on the case where we had the two individuals that jumped in the truck and they thought somebody was breaking in, so they drove and they murdered. But is it being a witness or snitching? What's going on? Where you at?
I mean,
When you come to New York.
you can't compare the street life to the civilian life. So if a person does not participate in criminal activity and decide to tell on you, well, that's just what they do. And so you can't put both of them standards together, because if my mother sees somebody commit a crime, she gonna call the police. She gonna be the first person to call the police. But I also expect that of her. So now you got people that commit crimes in front of people, knowing that the person is basically about to go tell on them, and they get mad, oh, that person's a rat. Well, you knew the person was gonna tell on you from the get-go, because they don't believe or
so
condone.
You see somebody get their head busted in front of you, ain't got nothing to do with you. What you gonna do?
We're talking about, for me, in my perspective, my point of view. You can't place that on everybody else.
You know what? Nah, you know what? Because this is what's real. I mean, I may have to have one of y'all hold this on the phone for me. This is what's real talk. But I'm going to go ahead and keep it extremely funky, because I just asked you a question that I can get involved in. Right? And somebody actually put me on Facebook for it too, which is extremely funny. But about a year ago or so, I saw an individual, it was a fight that happened off 18th and Vine. Now I'm perplexed. It was a bad fight. I didn't see how it started. I did call the police. Took me a minute because I didn't want to. And then I called them 3 or 4 times, and I kept getting the answer machine, which actually made me extremely mad. But there were some other political people down there too, right? So the other political person was able to get in contact with the police department. The police department showed up. Now, we waited till the ambulance came, and I ended up leaving because I figured the situation was addressed, etc. But then there's a moral clause too. Should I have done more to make sure that the individual that got in the fight went to jail? Now, the individual that got in the fight actually does positive things in the community as well. Both the individuals do positive things in the community. So it could have been extremely embarrassing to both individuals for having a physical conflict. As a witness, I was willing to do whatever, but none of the people wanted to do anything. So I felt comfortable with that. But that breaks down into society.
But you basically went into philosophy now or basically talk about moral conscience and things of that nature, and that all depends on each person that they think. Me personally, if I see the crime being committed, what I call or say something, it depends on that time and that time in that day. Majority of the time, yes, because I don't. It's wrong, so you do. But it's case by case basis. You really can't. And that's it right there.
And there are studies too that prove that the police in the society, like they did this murder happened in, let's say, like 62. There's this woman outside, and she's yelling that she's being raped, and she's asking and screaming for help. And there's reportedly like something like 42 witnesses, and nobody reported her because they assumed other people heard her and were going to call the police too. And so this went on for like 45, almost an hour. This lady's yelling and screaming and being murdered, asking for help. But nobody called the police because it had been in their neighborhood too. They already thought somebody else was going to do it.
Question, Jonas.
And so,
direct question for you. I heard something about this in law school. Whose responsibility was it? Was it everybody's? Should everybody have done it?
Again, and that's a morality thing. Yeah, I mean, everybody should have called the police. We should have had multiple calls of this women screaming like somebody getting raped outside. You know, it should have. But then again, people get to go and act in groupthink. It swallows the mind and then passing it on. Well, somebody else is going to do it. I don't want to get involved.
Hey, Jay, let me throw this in because I'm going to keep it extremely, and I'm going on 2 phones, so y'all got to excuse me when it hits the floor. I'm going to try to keep it extremely concurrent as I can. I'm going to read at least 2 comments and then go right back to you guys. The greatest con ever being pulled is the no snitching rule. Some say they are scared of retaliation, and I definitely want to get on the retaliation. Some say they are scared of retaliation, and others say it's nothing to do with them or they don't get involved unless it's their family, which we see a lot when we talk about murders in the city. Because, not to get on that.
And that goes back to retaliation. Because sometimes, the people have been known to retaliate, but that's few and far between. Because if you do have a law and you're trying to make things better and you're trying to appropriate too, but then we've got a thing now where, like you said, a whole culture we've built that is anti-authority. Well, not authority, but these authorities. So if we calling them and they call in and they're not going to do anything, or they make us the perpetrator in a crime that we haven't done anything, we're trying to tell you about the crime, and we call the crime, now we the criminals, we're not going to deal with y'all. Yep. Because there are people who are taking the law into their own hands and won't call anybody, and that's a lot of what we got going on.
That way I get everybody.
And so now we've got this thing now too, because yes, you do need to call the police sometime. Yes, we do need to become involved in our community, because snitching, it's not snitching if you weren't involved. Snitching is not the idea that I originally, forgive me if I'm wrong, was you helped plan the crime, you were involved with the crime, everybody else get caught, but everybody else doesn't get caught, you get caught, and so then you go to the police, and when you caught, you tell on everybody else.
All right,
now, I thought that was snitching. Now, so if I'm not involved with the crime, and I see a crime go down, and you could just report a crime, then that's doing your duty to your community. Am I wrong?
No, I think we all understand the difference between being active in a crime and talking about it, but it's a difference between culturalistic responses.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So, and I'm just going to use myself as an example because I can pick on myself and I can allow people to pick on me for what I went through and what made me. Growing up, I was taught, not by my parents, but I was taught that if something happened, it happened, right? It's not necessarily your responsibility now to help folks, but what I mean by that, you see 2 people fighting, you don't know what they're fighting for, you just keep it moving, right?
Yeah.
Which creates a significant culturalistic problem, because if you say something like we was talking about earlier, now you're injecting and you're involving yourself and you're getting involved. But in our community, we have both. We have people that are witnessing things that are afraid to talk because they're afraid of retaliation, which is part of the culture. Because if you talk, you're supposed to be retaliated against blockwise.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, man, you can't trust dude, man. Dude always whoop-de-whoop. Right? If dude's always calling when kids is over here, dude's always getting in people's business and nobody on that block trusts.
Yeah.
Which creates a problem. So when we talk about the 6ix9ine effect, I'm gonna hit 6ix9ine because he was involved in a lot of the criminal activities, and then he told on it, and he told on it because he said what they were trying to do to him. So when does it become a reality in our community that we have to understand that if I'm seeing it and I'm not saying anything, then I am a silent conspirator with it because I'm allowing you to be victimized because it's not touching me. And then when it touches me, I want you to get involved. But that goes against the code of conduct. Or am I saying it
I
right?
mean, no, you're not right. But because they've become so bold as if they're not even hiding the crimes anymore. There was a time where the crime was from out of view. You know, there was a reasonable expectation. I know you're a criminal. Don't do it in front of me. You know what I mean? That way I don't have to tell. But now you're in the middle of broad daylight with a gun shooting somebody. Now, how can I not tell? Now, why are there no expectations on their side of the law? You know what I mean? Like, you know, even then, we have to uphold the expectations of our society. If we expect it to be where we can have value in our neighborhoods, if we're trying to increase the likelihood in the schools, the nature of the schools, all these things have a cause and effect.
You know what? I don't think I'm saying it right.
I can talk about that aspect as far as the broad daylight piece, right? Because we really in an interesting dynamic because it's twofold. You got the street justice, you got to deal with that aspect or the perception of that, and then you got the actual legal system. So it always put, unfortunately, the culture in a catch-22, no matter what.
I'm glad you went
even
there.
If they say this way or if they do that way, and that's why even Will York was saying we're situational. But even then, that's where the family aspect come into play. Because when there's family involved, that catch-22, there really isn't a line on that. But then there's another aspect where we should look at us culturalistically as a whole, like our collective identity as a family. But that doesn't exist because we've been disenfranchised. They fragmented that structure through so many various dynamics over the years. And then now we're in this current situation where we're at.
Well, how do we even do that though? I mean, with us being in the city, how do we develop that family type consciousness amongst the people that dwell here?
It's been done.
Well, hold on.
Has it been done?
Yes, it was.
I mean, if something happens to somebody 30 blocks from me, I mean, do I look at that person as family? Do I look at the perpetrator as family? Do I look at that as somebody that's disparate and separate from me? You know, do I feel some type of personal obligation to intervene? I mean, that's the things that's being touched on right here.
Nigel, are you saying that Black Lives Matter when it's convenient to black folks?
Of course.
Yep.
What I'm saying is black lives.
I'll say it.
All lives matter.
He didn't say that word for word, but that's what he said,
I'm
though.
about to come right back.
I'm saying, it's definitely a lot of multi-variables that you got to consider.
Well, it seems like, and again, this show is to agitate people, to irritate people, to get them to think. But it seems like that it is what it is, right? I stepped over I seen my first cat shot when I was like 5 or 6. I stepped over my first body when I was like 21, 22 off of Van Brunt, right? And this is when I realized how desensitized I was because I didn't want blood on my Stafford shirt, my white Stafford. So I grabbed it with the door and I stepped over. And when I walked in, I watched everybody look at me. Oh, I think I did just step over this person. Now, he wasn't black, and that doesn't matter. But now I'm saying this to be real. When it comes to Black Lives Matter and when Black lives are convenient, that's what it seems like it is. Because we're not worried about the kid that's not my kid that's sitting on the street while the dude is driving up and down fast or while these cats is out smoking wet or popping pistols in the whole nine. We don't care when we see the kids at the gas station fighting because it's funny when we watch it on YouTube. But when it's our child getting stomped out by 15 people, that's the problem.
What's the saying? What's the saying? What'll make you laugh? Make you cry, and so that's just karma in its purest form. But hold on, brother. Isn't karma energy related to energy that you put out? So if you put out good cosmic energy, meaning that I'm taking care of those that are around me, the karma that comes back will be good. Yes, sir.
Should.
That's why I try to do everything straight across the board.
But as you said, it's communal.
I want to get y'all all three in, but I want to go back to the comment that D made when he talked about the legal system in conjunction with you and us being a family. So when does the family take care of the family and how? If we have a lack or a lapse there in legal enforcement. Now I'm just gonna hit you again because I have triple and quadruple hats. Sometimes I talk to law enforcement about different things that are happening, and they tell me they can't do anything because of such and such, or they're building a case, etc.
Yeah.
Now I get that from a legal standpoint. I get that you're gonna watch this individual do so many deeds so you can get enough info. But from a family standpoint, that doesn't work. If my niece, my auntie, my mom is in the troublesome situation because we got some cats that don't want to get right, and you telling me I gotta wait on you to build a case, then that means you're telling me that my people are not worth enough to be a victim, because we know it's all type of stuff going on. So if they accidentally get murdered, well, that was just part of the investigation. Or if somebody runs in their house,
Hey,
that is part of the investigation.
I want to interject on that.
Go ahead, brother.
We're going to talk about that with the Georgia case. Why it takes so many
Make
months.
sure you got it on you.
You know, why it take so many months to apprehend a suspect.
Well, they
Per
didn't-
se, right?
Well, no, you know,
With the
arrest them.
case,
They
yeah,
had
with
the
the- with-
suspects.
But I'm saying you got all this info, and that's the same thing. When you got to follow that process, that legal process, there's definitely a time lapse in that. But in that time lapse, for those who are conscious of that aspect, they can capitalize. You know,
Well, and you got to understand
that's
too,
where you fall into the retaliation piece.
But you're right too in there. But we also got to always remember that in the legal system, there's more than one case happening simultaneously.
But you also,
so they've got to. So
you
you got to think that you got the police. There's somebody else. While this murder happened, there's another murder happening across there, and there's another murder. And so then inside the legal system, and then they got a system of checks and balances now where they're tiptoeing through our community.
Why is
And
that? Why they tiptoeing through that? and
Because
not the
we've
other?
said Black Lives Matter, and we've said these things. We raised these things on police, on police brutality and things of that nature. And so I'm just playing both sides of the fence.
No,
now.
I
And
want
then
you to.
on this side too. So now we've created this system where why should we go in there and risk our lives when they are doing what are they going to do? Nobody's going to talk to us. Nobody's going to tell us anything. Nobody's going to do this.
Well, hold on, John.
Hold
I want to stay right where he's at.
Yeah.
I want to stay right where he's at real quick. But there was a comment on here that I wanted to throw in, and it goes to what you were saying. Pretty much, and excuse me, Mel, because I don't see it, but I kind of remember. She was like, "Why do we people get tired of talking to people when nothing gets done?"
That's
And
real.
I agree with that, but that depends on who we're talking to, which
That's
goes
real.
right back to what Jonas was just saying. So, putting on a different hat
Yeah.
from a person that doesn't come from the culture. If I came to the inner city, I probably wouldn't have the same love that I have. Right now, I come from the culture, and I'm not perfect. I like violence and all type of stuff, right? But I understand it's a place and a time for things like boxing. You can do that in the MMA match. You don't do that in the middle of 39th Street.
Exactly.
Right? You go to a range to shoot guns. You don't shoot guns off of 43rd Street.
But
Down there
here's
by
the-
the store. Yeah.
But going to right where you at with law enforcement, what responsibilities does the community have? What responsibility does law enforcement have if you have a situation where nobody trusts?
It goes back to people are going to treat you how you let them treat you, or the expectation you
real.
have of yourself. Other
That's real.
people have that expectation for you. So if you let a body lay in the street for 4 days before you even bother to call the police, that's significant. What does that say to me as a police
Hold on,
officer?
I'm gonna come in on that.
And so, I ain't gonna say, well, damn, if it didn't matter that much to them, they waited 4 days, and then that person's family may be upset, who's the dead person, but still everybody else in the community is still thinking like, well, I've got to say that it obviously didn't mean that much to me. They was dead in the street for 4 days.
But I want
But
to
now
know.
look-
Here's my
No,
thing,
hold on,
right?
hold on,
I want to.
Hold on.
We're
That
going-
has a lot of validity, and I'm coming right today.
and we just coming about how it is.
When I had my satellite office broke in, it was funny because I'm in the office now, so we called the police. It took them like 3 hours to get over there.
Yeah.
By the time they came, we had already handled the situation. Now, I happen to be somebody that thinks, but that could have been a very bad situation because you call for help.
He said my point.
3
Brandon.
hours later,
That's my
they
point.
show up. Well, if dude
But see,
was
it's a
running up
cause
on
and
me-
effect of each other.
Yeah. I give you that.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
if dude was running up with a pistol, and I gotta wait 3 hours, I'm either dead or I just committed an act that
Yeah.
I'm about to see the prosecutor to justify what I did, which is extremely
Again,
problematic when we
that's
talk
the
about-
time
But that
lapse.
could be but no, at the same time, that could be what led to that body laying there for 4 days because everybody saw it go out there. And that's what we're talking about. No, because
it could be, but
Yeah.
the reality.
Now we took it-
but-
now we
hold
look-
on. The reality is is I don't care about probables. The reality is that we got 60+ murders and it's on us. Right?
Exactly.
The reality is that if we don't start policing our community, we can talk about why the police don't come in, and there is valid reasons, and I give you that. But it don't matter.
It don't,
because I got a 3-hour
with you.
lapse that I have to deal with.
Exactly.
So my
We have
point
to
is,
deal
when
with
we start seeing things, we have to start reacting. So that story that I told you at the beginning of
That's
the
exactly what I was about to go on. The
No,
time
go
lapse. When you talk about the process and the time lapse,
Make
because
sure
it
you know,
it ain't the same time lapse when you got a undercover cop, you know, coming to talk to you on a suspected probable cause situation. They're gonna be right then and there. But if it's something when you call and then you can't get through, and then they can't get through the process, so it's like you got a system put in place, and the system is put in place to create certain results. So that tells you that either either ain't working.
Well, and the
or-
system has become flawed.
That's
because
what
of
I'm
the
saying.
man
So
who-
so if
hold
it's
on, hold on, question.
yeah,
Question. Which one becomes more important? The lack there of a systematic response or the lack there of an organized community response? So if you got people on your block
Mhm.
that's creating problems, and let's say that the excuse is that the police won't come
mm-hmm,
or they don't show up in enough time,
mm-hmm.
and that's real.
Yeah.
What are you supposed to do?
Well,
My opinion is that we should start organizing on the block. So we got somebody now. This can go multiple ways.
Yeah.
Because we're dealing with unknowns of unknowns, but we can't be victims inside our house. So the neighborhood that I'm talking about, because I like those solutions in there too. One of the areas that I'm talking about, we actually got with the neighbors and we're canvassing, getting signatures to put speed bumps and a couple other things in there, which does two things. One, it mediates operations and how things can go, and then it gets the community involved. When we look at these 60+ murders throughout the city, we know that they're happening in areas that people see things.
Mm-hmm.
We know that people are scared to talk, and we also know that there's a reality of a lack there of police presence and concern, whether that's
I would say
publicity
concern. Yeah.
or
Empathy.
whatever the reason is. But let's get rid of the excuse.
Yeah.
I just
So-
want
Now
to
check this
say-
out, though.
I mean, I'm trying to figure out what world y'all living in, because snitching is basically at an all-time high. You got the criminals snitching on everybody. You got the people outside snitch on everybody, and don't get the police misconstrued. They know they have a lot of intel
way more
on
info.
stuff that is going on.
You got
Yeah.
cameras
So
on
most
every
of the
corner.
time, if they tell you like, "Hey, we are basically investigating the people," they're building up a 5 to 3 year case on
They
that
already got
person
you.
to
Yeah.
basically take down everybody, and then next thing you know, it'll be a new person next year.
Yeah.
And that's just the way this
And
system
snitching
goes.
is not a new
But should
idea.
that-
It's just being
Well,
called
hold on,
that.
hold on,
now.
hold on. I want to hit where he's at because I'm trying to agitate certain points in people's minds. Should we be comfortable with that though? Should I be comfortable saying that law enforcement has to take 6 months to build a case, and that whole time you building the case, I'm in danger? Should that be normal? Because that's not normal
Well,
in other communities. And that goes
Exactly.
back to
well, but there's
concern.
not 80 murders in other communities.
I mean, but they
But
You know what I mean?
still.
It could
And
be
that ties
if
to the
they got
trust
if
thing,
they got
man.
5
Ties to
murders
the
in this
trust.
if they got
About
5
the
murders in
community,
this
yeah.
community, you know, it's
easier to
have
handle the
officers
workload.
on those cases is different than when you got 80 cases going
He
simultaneously.
right on that. The
And
case,
so-
the workload.
As again, too, you know, we're switching back because, like, I've lived in various communities, and I've seen the reaction to law enforcement. I've lived in brown communities. I lived in Asian communities. I lived in white communities, and I've seen things that blow me away. Like I had to step back and be like, "Oh, wow, that's different. Oh, that's how y'all do it here." Because even let's say I was in the Asian community, those people had an intermediary.
Let me
He
went
wouldn't talk to the police.
Hey, Jones,
and
let
they
me
have-
throw this in. So I'm coming
Okay.
back to you, coming to Nigel, but there's a couple comments that goes to the conversation. When my car was stolen, there was a stink of thieves still in the same type of vehicle
Yeah.
from Kansas and Missouri. They got caught in Kansas trying to multiple felony charges, placed on them in Kansas. My cousin saw that guy driving my car in Missouri. Missouri went to go interview
Yep.
him in Kansas, and they said that they can't press charges. So basically, I want to throw in the issue.
Oh, I want to talk on that one.
Because that's
Because
the law. Because if he
That's
didn't
what
get
I'm
caught
saying.
in
That's what I'm
Missouri-
saying with the catch 22.
Yeah.
And you dealing with a culture now. Be realistic. You look at us as a whole in regards to understanding law to these other communities and cultures and the things put in place. And I hear you talking about organizing on the block in the community. But what other like when you do that, you can't tell me that steps haven't been placed to disrupt that historically
Absolutely.
when it comes to our
How
culture.
we gonna keep saying that?
Because it has happened. And that's the
we
problem.
keep overcoming.
So that's an aspect, though. I'm not saying it's an excuse on us. I'm not for the excuses. I said, but it is realities. And if these things aren't addressed or communicated effectively as like, hey, this is an aspect that occurs or has a probability of occurring, do we have anything in place to prevent that from reoccurring? Because if not, then we have another fault. But that's what I'm saying. That catch-22 is crazy. And the same thing the person was talking about with that legal system, because that's where it gets sketchy. Or example, I'm gonna give you a scenario. Say a person is committing murders, goes to jail, comes back out, no record, keeps doing it, and this type of cycle goes on. And then we talk about that same system that's put in place to serve and protect.
Hold on, D.
You know what I'm talking about?
No, D.
Where-
No, hold on.
Where that ain't followed
No,
to its point too.
Because hold on, nah, he's hitting something.
Because
not to put dude's name
it's
out.
always a catch-22, no matter what decision. And it's like, I think the information or knowledge and understanding and wisdom, shout out, is very important, because if you understand the dynamic in the environment you're in and all the contributing factors to the decisions, I think that gives you a little more opportunity or chance to actually implement the change. But it's so many dynamics in it.
Well, hold on. I actually want to throw something in because it goes to relevancy. But I'm gonna read a couple questions before I do it. If they arrest based off what they already, instead of waiting on more issues of potential to have extra crimes would disappear. Somebody told you no, Jonas. I don't know which comment piece of. All right, no. So I want to throw out a individual that I know in Kansas City. He's dead now, but at the time he had 3 known bodies on him. They did the pitch expose on him, talking about the witnesses and the different murder cases that he had that then disappeared and all that good stuff. He was a known killer off 27th, 23rd Street. He was actually a cool cat too. Well,
We know what you're saying. Yeah.
you know what I mean? The reason I brought him up is because he was a known killer and people talked about him. The police knew about him. The witnesses disappeared in all the murder cases. He ended up getting murdered after the pitch expose. But that's a problem when we talk about communities that are being victimized dualistically. One, by the institutions that aren't coming out.
I am playing devil's advocate.
No, you said it right on the money. The dualistically. That's the issue.
So going back to the 60 murders and being the witness or being the snitch, we have a decision to make. Either we can sit back and we can quietly observe, or we can get involved. Now, if we get involved, we're siding. If we don't get involved, we're siding. If I sit on the block and I watch the activity happen, then I'm a quiet conspirator, right? Because I'm only worried about my block, my house. I'm not worried about what happens outside of there. So I'm actually helping that energy grow. Now, if I get with 2 or 3 of my neighbors on my block that is as concerned with what's going on, it could be a physical problem. It could not be a physical problem when we talk about lack of police enforcement. But if we start getting 2 to 3 people per area, now we got 300-400 people that is just as concerned. Because when I was walking that block, the thing that I found funny was a couple things. One, I noticed that I'm actually getting older. My mind is changing. I'm walking the block and I'm like, man, this is not cool. I got my kids with me, but I'm not fearful, but I'm thinking about everything that could happen, as opposed to 10 years ago. I'd have been walking the block, anticipating willingly. Like, man, I hope dude does say something.
Yeah.
Now I'm walking the block like, man, if they say something, it's going to be a problem. But I do have to talk to these people because y'all problem over here. So when it comes to being the witness, if we are being the witness, we have to become active participators in what we're witnessing. We can't witness the lady getting beat at the gas station and not saying anything. We can't witness a little kid getting stomped out by the police.
Okay, but
now
part of that happens.
We can't witness the
But like you said,
stomped out by the person that looks like them and not saying anything.
But that's the issue, the maturity piece.
We can't sit back and watch vehicle accidents and not get involved when we see the hit and run because it's part of the culture. We can't say that it's copacetic, right? Because if we want to get to a point where we're going to be safe and we don't have 60 murders, then everybody has to understand that if you do something in front of a black person in front of a black person, that black person gonna do the same thing a white person would do if you do something to a white person in front of a white person.
Exactly.
So
You're
we're
gonna have to
talking
change the
about
culture.
working with law enforcement to get more
Yeah.
people locked up to go against mass incarceration.
No, that ain't what I said. No,
But that's what it's going to
But
lead
it
to.
exists,
because
but that dynamic
that's
exists.
what it's leading to.
That's that
That's
catch-22.
but that's a different. That's see, y'all want to break the intricacies of it. He's talking about the community. Mass incarceration also exists because people choose to sell drugs.
Okay, well,
And so nobody forces anybody to do that too. We got to take some responsibility on greater levels, like he's talking about. He's talking about taking responsibility for these people in our community and cleaning up on the outside. Now, instead of a mindset, mass incarceration, now if you wasn't selling crack or selling drugs, you wouldn't be in jail. At the same
I can't
time.
agree with that one fully.
But no. We're just talking. I'm not saying that anybody's doing it. Just like there's people selling meth. There's people doing this. When somebody commits a crime, they did right it wrong. Now saying it's wrong,
but they don't get
it's
this.
wrong.
There's not
No,
equality.
it's a wrong
hold on,
law.
real quick.
I'm not arguing that it's
real
not
quick.
wrong, but the law is wrong.
Comments,
No, it's
hold on. Two
yeah.
comments that definitely have to be read that goes right into this. And this is real, but it also goes to the culture. Cops don't care about the person that snitched, who is about to be dead, or everybody that's going to go to jail or be. No, that's 100% real.
No, that's what
we
I'm.
know cops put people in the front seat and all type of stuff. But
Absolutely.
but that's not my point. That's not my point. After I read this next one, we can't instigate situations either. So now we got we got two things on the table. We have cops don't care about people that snitch, and that's 100% true.
Correct.
But should the climate be that if you do something here, you're almost guaranteed? Like if I go to the Brookside, I know if I do anything in Brookside,
I'm going
you get
not only am I going to jail,
correct.
Somebody gonna say something.
Yeah.
If I'm doing it legally, if I'm not doing it legally, right? Just because I happen to be on Brookside,
But
and I
that's
don't look like I live there.
That's part of
Now,
the issue.
Should it be the same in the inner city?
It should, but it's not.
I don't know you. You on my block. You doing something that looks suspect? Should I be?
But
But
that's
it's
what
not.
he's saying. The community, he's saying that's what he's saying. The community can change and make it like Brookside. And so it's all about a point of view. Keep saying yes, it's not, but it's also about accepting that it can be. It's about we know what it's not and we know what's wrong. We're saying what do we want? Because
I'm with you on that, but there's still.
You can keep going back to what there are.
I will, because it's what it
about
is.
what we want. I understand, and what it is what we don't want. And so we have
with
to
you
talk
on that.
about
I'm with you
what
on
we
that.
want, like that law, that 500 to 1 law. We know that's wrong. No, it's wrong, and so we got to be advocating.
As soon as they made that law,
the
I'm
Congress.
through selling. I'm through hustling.
Yeah.
If I would have do that, I said, what? When they, I said, wait, y'all gonna give me all this time for this? Yeah. So one of the main things is actually understanding the law and,
Thank you.
and
That's what I'm saying.
and basically
You said that
educating
knowledge and
yourself
wisdom,
and knowing what laws you breaking, because it doesn't
Exactly.
make any sense. They changed the laws, but back then, 5 grams of crack cocaine,
Now, see,
which is nothing but an 8 ball to 16th, $150 will get you 5 years in prison.
Now see, I'm gonna disagree with y'all on this because for a short time in my life, I did some things that wasn't right, and I knew the legal repercussions, and that would make me go twice as hard. If you telling me that you're gonna take this from me in this excess, then I'm gonna do it this way because if you come, you're gonna have to deal with me in this manner. So I don't think time frames alone is scary because if it was a 3 strikes and you out,
Would have been.
would have lowered murder. The
Yeah, that was
dramatic
the fact,
increase in
yeah.
disparity between crack and cocaine laws would have drastically decreased it. I think that's one of the caveats that we need to be extremely conscious of when we talk about legal repercussions from activities that aren't justified in that activity, right? I get more time for selling dope than I do for committing murder, but one has a different moralistic connection and it has different motivations behind it. I don't think time frames alone scares people away from doing crimes. I think it matters with the mentality of the individual, but I think increasing time frames can actually do a detriment if you have an extremely aggressive individual, because if you tell somebody that you're on your 3rd strike and you get caught, you're not seeing the light of day. Some individuals that have a savage mentality, they're doing high-speed chases, they're shooting at the police, and they're doing all type of stuff for an offense that would have only been 2 or 3 years, but they're thinking that I'm going to be locked away for life, so the aggression factor rises. I think we have to be smart on crime and not just reacting to crime. And I want to throw that out because time frames don't And I mean, it's been proven in history.
Yeah, it doesn't prove. I was just talking about from my experience,
And that's-
personally.
I love
I
what
wasn't
he's
talking
saying.
about nobody else. My experience made me realize that I've been tricked, bamboozled, and hoodwinked, and that's why I changed my thinking to think more of a to basically more of a higher level of basically enriching myself, but also enriching my people at the same time.
And that's, can I go on that? And that's what I was trying to say with the knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. Because like you, in example of an individual that had that same mentality, and you was around a bunch of individuals. Not all of them had the same mentality, and that's another dynamic that you got to deal with, because everyone's got different mentalities, and some people react to the time different. Some people react to the crime different. There's all aspects on how is the person going to take whatever you giving to them. And I'm with you on the culture, but the culture, what I'm trying to say,
it's a cultural
Hold on,
shift.
hold on, hold on.
That's at the paradigm.
You got a question?
That's the cultural
Hey,
shift
well, nah,
paradigm.
man.
and
Not
that's
a-
always
not a-
going to
not
be
a
the
question.
catch-22, because it's not just one battle. You fighting a multifaceted battle at all times.
Well, I do want to throw Dude's statement in because he comments all the time and he always has good comments. What's up, Mr. Holman? The fact, and this is just getting straight to the point, but this also goes back to culture. The fact that this has to be debated, do the right thing or not. Stays out the way of thinking has not been changed, which is very simple. Do the right thing or not. Do I help the old lady across the street, or do I watch the puddle hitter? Do I help the kid get to the park, or do I break glass bottles in the park? Do the right thing. Do I watch the cat break in the dude's house?
We're talking about a cultural change, and we've seen cultural shifts from. Let's even talk from the '60s to now in the black community. In the '60s to the '70s to the mid '70s, you had a united front of black people coming together. We overcome. We got the voting rights. We had this and that. In the '70s, we got angry because we were tired and beaten on us, and we know we can't be Panthers. We did that, and we fought back. In the early '80s is when we saw the drugs hit. Wow. E40 said the world went crazy in 1985. Saw rock, cocaine, and everything explode everywhere. And we saw a cultural dynamic shift even in our music. I remember the summer where Self-Destruction are all in the same
We
game
get back to music
was
today.
on the same game was out when NWA they had 100 Miles and Running was on the radio. If they would have taken Self-Destruction or same gang and pushed it, and rather than NWA, well, we have a completely totally different culture now.
Yes.
And so now we've got people who think about, like he said, slinging crack rock, or you got a wicked jump shot. Whether you can be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, an electrician, you can get on the back of a damn trash truck. You can build construction. There's
be a
not
CEO
just
of a
two
company.
options to be in our culture and our community. As he said, we've got to rebuild according to our narrative, who we are.
Thank you.
Stop letting them define who
Yeah.
anybody
Now look,
else is.
I gotta read this.
That's
This for Jonas. I gotta read this. First time I've agreed with the dude and talked.
I was just being devil's advocate all day.
Well, so that's
say I put on a different hat.
so this is what I'm saying. I'm 1,000,000% with him on the narrative, because if we don't control the
Appreciate it.
narrative, somebody
you for
else is
listening.
going to do the narrative and do the influence on that type of narrative. It's so pivotal, the fact that you were talking about the music at the time, and we talk about the drugs. Like I was saying, who infiltrated these organizations that was put in place? And if we act like that didn't happen, like that's a reality.
Well, I got
And
a
then the
question.
same
They
thing with
got
the
me
drugs.
going.
We didn't bring them drugs in here.
I
You
got
see
a
what I'm
question
saying?
for
We
both of
didn't.
y'all.
Go ahead.
No, hold on. I got a question
But
for both of y'all as we close out, because y'all talking about the history, and I
But
study
that's
history.
important.
No, hold on.
Yeah.
I study history. I believe in history. I think you should learn from history.
Yes.
Right. But dig this. I had a hamburger yesterday at 8:30. It is now 3:50. I haven't ate since yesterday at 8:30. I don't care that I had a hamburger yesterday. What I'm dealing with is this hunger in my stomach right now. So I'll get you on history, infiltration,
I'm with you on that.
COINTELPRO, who run the dope in the community and the whole nine.
All
But
that.
we here today. And today we got to make a decision. I don't care what happened yesterday, because yesterday is not here. It's a thought. It's a memory. But today I'm dealing with 60 murders and a couple old people that can't come out their house because they scared of the people that's across the street. Right? That's my reality right now. And in order to fix that reality as a community, we have to come to the understanding that if I'm a witness and I don't say anything, I'm a silent co-conspirator. If I'm a witness, then I get involved, then I'm actually doing something that needs to be done, and I expect that to happen from somebody else. And this is how humans learn. We learn from observation and participation. So when we talk about the unity and the dysfunctionality and the getting broken up, We observed that.
Mhm.
We participated in that.
Mhm.
We should be able to get past that without having to remember it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah,
There
it
it
happened.
is.
I don't have to keep thinking about that hamburger. I need to kill me a cow.
The past will
and
be your
cook.
biggest
That's what I'm
shackle.
saying though, and
to
I
the
agree
future.
with that. That's where the
Mhm.
wisdom come in. I'm
Outta
not saying
here.
we repeat the
It
past,
is.
but I'm
But I-
saying we don't repeat the past, and the way you do that is actually learning from it. And like, hey, this can happen. I'm
And
not
so-
saying it will happen because I'm not like that. I'm like, we can't change anything.
And so we're
I said-
injecting into the community today.
But with the
narrative.
mind frame of like, if you go to battle, say you're gonna fight Mike Tyson, you're not gonna tell me this dude ain't got no uppercut. Yeah, he 50-something years old, but you just gotta be
No,
aware, like, hey,
no,
if
this-
Mike
no,
comes,
this is what
what
I'm
do we
saying.
do in order as like a countermeasure for that
Now, this
possibility
is what I'm saying. I'm
with
gonna
the
read.
decision moving forward?
Now, this is what I'm saying. I'm gonna read this comment to prove it. You should care because those same people are bringing the drugs in. But he gets the point. But
Yeah.
yeah, they bringing the drugs in, but I ain't got to eat it. I
yes,
know that.
but we
cup
got to
is not-
change the
And
mentality.
they ain't
my
always the
point.
ones bringing.
We got to
drugs
change the
in.
mentality
yes.
for that. But I'm saying, if we don't understand the things that impact the mentality to begin with, it makes it that much harder to address it. So it's like if you don't know why you're doing it, you don't know why you hungry. You don't even know why you eating beef.
All right.
Why we ain't vegetarian.
All
Like we
right.
can go like that, but at the same time, that's where that knowledge, understanding, and wisdom is so crucial in order to make the best decisions to move forward. If not, we are liable to probably fall victim to the same type of past. And I'm saying I don't want to
I'm
do
with
that.
you.
And he's
But
exactly
you
right.
right on
the
because we have
mentality.
to accept the we part, the part, the mentality, responsibility to ourselves and to our future and to
But
now.
but it's
To
gonna
doing the right thing now,
it's gonna be
today.
more of the I part, like focusing on the 3 no's. The 3 no's is know thyself, know thy enemy, know thy environment.
real.
But you also, when you talk about change, it was a story. I'm gonna get straight to the point. The man didn't realize he wanted to change the world. He wanted to change his community. He wanted to change his world. He wanted to change this. He wanted to change that. He said, but once I sat on my bed, on my deathbed, and I was about to die, I realized that if I would have changed myself, I would have been able to influence my family. That basically would have influenced my community.
Yep.
So us right here having these think tank and showing what the manifestation looks like would basically be an outbreak to the people that pay attention, and basically it could basically proliferate throughout the community.
It manifests.
right.
That's
Hold on,
what
hold on,
said.
hold on.
Preach on.
York,
proliferate.
no, hold on.
It manifests.
School though.
Manifest and
Hey,
proliferate.
Nah, York-
Manifest and proliferate.
Yeah,
York-
Go forth now he into the community
no,
and
but
teach.
hey, I got nothing to say.
Hold on. York killed it. That was the final
Hey.
word. You've been listening to What's Real
Jonas got
Talk
support
on
today too.
KUAW. The call-in number is always area code 816-599-6893. And to answer your question about the Hebrew Israelites, I would love to have them on here. No ifs, ands, or buts. But it's been real. And if you would like to get involved with the No More Excuses Coalition, reach out to my office, brandon.ellington@kcmo.org. And it's all about action, no excuses.
There it is. There it is.
Brother said, manifest.
Hey,